Welcome to episode 2 of the Basics and Beyond podcast. Today, I have my very first guest on the podcast. His name is Nick Cullinan. He's a friend of mine. He's a colleague of mine. He's been a roommate of mine. We've known each other for a while. And today, Nick is going to talk to all of us about his evolution, his evolving over time in terms of his health, his wellness, his fitness, and just himself. Period. You're going to love this today. Come on in, join us for the conversation. So let's talk, man. Welcome to the podcast.
Super awesome. Excited. Yeah, thanks for having me.
You're my first guest.
I am? Awesome.
You are. I am super excited.
I'm honored to be your first guest. Thank you for having me.
So I've known you for years and years. Actually, it hasn't been years and years, but it's been a long time. And I just want to give just a small little background. We've known each other. Let's figure it out. I've been here 3 years. I was down there 4 years in Iowa. So I met you in Iowa. And did we meet at CrossFit the first year? Or did you, because you did 2 different CrossFits. When did you come to CrossFit Des Moines?
My second time to CrossFit Des Moines would have been probably spring. I want to say spring of 16. If I remember correctly, it's about the time I switched back. I remember actually I went to Waukee for a couple months and then decided to just go back to the Urbandale location because at that time they were still the same ownership. If you had a membership to one, you had membership to the other, you know. So somewhere around then.
So I would have moved there 17.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Seems like longer, to be honest. 17, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
That long, 7 years, 2024.
It feels like longer, honestly. I feel like I've known you guys forever. It's crazy.
So we met at CrossFit, and the reason that I wanted to have you on the podcast is because number one, you're amazing. But you have a really interesting story because, there's 2 kinds of people in the world. People who, in one category, right? People who kind of stay in one spot, do the same thing. They find their niche and they just hit cruise and they do their thing forever and ever, right? Like same job-ish, maybe same career, live in the same space, do the same thing. And then there's other people who find, for whatever reason, that they're just going to switch it up and they do different things. And you're part of that second group. And you're not afraid to change it up and do different things. And you've done different things with, you're constantly evolving. And that's part of the reason, we're friends and we talk all the time and all that kind of stuff. But I think that when I thought about who would be a great fit to talk on the podcast, part of it was because that is what you do. You are constantly evolving. You're tuned into yourself. You're always asking good questions of yourself. You're kind of checking in, and you evolve when you feel like you need to. And sometimes you evolve before maybe you think you need to. So give us a little background on you. This is Nick, everyone. This is Nick. He's amazing. So tell us a little bit about you.
Well, basically, I'm a police officer in Iowa. Been a cop for 4 years. I actually got hired right at the start of the COVID pandemic. So that was an interesting time. But I worked, I don't know. My journey kind of goes back to, the fitness journey is more of just kind of, I guess, like most people, I started probably working out as far as consistently, not until my college years. My high school years playing sports and stuff, and just kind of naturally staying active. Like sports would keep me active and fit, but I never really had I never stepped into a gym. And there wasn't back in those days, there wasn't a ton of them like there is today. The fitness industry is completely different today than it was 20, 25 years ago. But
what sports did you do?
Growing up, it was mostly basketball and baseball. I've always been little. Growing up, I was one of the shortest in my class. Luckily, I had a growth spurt after high school, but being a little smaller guy, I was too small for football. And never was interested in wrestling growing up. I just never, I guess, had the opportunity. But having done like some martial arts with your, husband and stuff like that, I actually see why it is fun. And I kind of wish I would have done something like that growing up too. But baseball, basketball mostly. I was just an active kid outside. My mom would throw us out if she thought we were watching too much TV or playing video games. She'd make my brother go outside and just go do stuff.
Mhm.
So I've been a pretty fit kid growing up and stuff. I mean, not super gifted athletically, pretty average, even below average, I would say. But yeah, I mean, got into college and just kind of went there, ran through the motions. I mean, I didn't really wasn't interested in my degree I was pursuing. I was just mostly just there to be with friends because I wanted to get away from home. Thought I knew everything, right? Hated my dad, hated my parents. Just
What did you get your degree
18.
in?
My degree was in mechanical engineering, believe it or not.
There we go.
But I I honestly my heart was never in it. I just I just did it because that's what my high school counselor suggested I should do based on the subjects I was good at in high school. But I never really like high school was easy to me. Like I didn't have to try, like
Mm.
never had to study or anything like that. Now I didn't really push myself. So yeah, I was like I said, like I cared more about um like I said, going to the next party or, and hanging out with friends and actually going to class, like I just kind of I don't know, I like to say I just kind of sleepwalk my way through school, but and I kept kind of fit the first few years. Still didn't really have any super regimen I followed. I ran more back then actually,
Mm.
but not like a lot. Like maybe 2, 3 times a week would be what I would do, and maybe 3 miles or something like that. Maybe a 5 mile, something like that. It was never fast. It just did it just to you know because that's all I really do. I didn't know much about lifting weights or anything like that. I mean,
So at
the
that
internet.
time, were you doing that because you were like, hey, I need to do something? Or just like it was what everybody else was doing? Or what was the impetus for running?
I don't know. It's probably just because it was easy and free.
And
I'd
you
run outside.
and you felt like
Um,
you should be doing something.
yeah, I always like to do something. I've always been an outdoorsy person because, like I said, growing up, mom would make us go out and do stuff. But uh, yeah, so I've always been a proponent of being outside, being active. Doesn't necessarily mean you have to be exercising, but doing something. But anyway, so toward the end of college, though, I kind of worked out less and less, and like I just had depression, anxiety, not like really bad, like probably some people do, nothing that I was medicated on, but definitely something wasn't right. Like I wasn't the same as I was, in my high school years, just, cause I was out of shape, heavy for me. The heaviest I ever gotten was just under 200 pounds. And I remember seeing the scale, I was approaching it one day and, I was like, man, I need to do something. So I think I started going to like a Anytime Fitness. I think they have up there. I think it's something like that. It was like a 24-hour fitness gym, but did that and kind of just winged it. I mean, the internet was around, but it wasn't like, I don't know. I just didn't think to like go online and just like Google like how to do this, how to do that. I just kind of went in there and just kind of ran through the motions, kind of did some things. I mean, um, but I remember I would play softball with my buddy Kevin in the summers up there in Ames. And I remember after one season, our team was terrible. Like we would get mercy ruled every game.
Oh,
Yeah, just horrible. I still had fun doing it. But I remember after like one season, he's like, "Hey, we should just like actually focus this off season and work out like consistently." And he suggested actually this gym out in West Ames at the time. This is a 2011, I think, and called CrossFit. I'd never heard of it. So we went out there. I remember stepping in there, and the owner at the time, Joey, said, "Yeah, come on and do a workout for free tomorrow, and we'll put you through it and let you decide what you want to do." So I remember going into the next day and seeing the workout on the board, and it wasn't like when you looked at it, it didn't look daunting at all. It
those
was
are the
just like,
worst.
yeah, no. And so I didn't know what I didn't know. Like this was really the start of my real fitness journey. It's this moment right here. Like I think it was August. No, not August. Was it August? Summer 2011. I think it was August. Really hot. I know that it was hot. Like this gym looked like this wasn't like a CrossFit gym today. Like this is old school OG CrossFit where it was like the gym looked like the gym from Rocky, like Mickey's gym, like old rusty bars, old weights. Gym was mats were dirty. They had a garage door they opened up. I mean, and this is exactly what I liked. Actually, it's what drew me to it. It's just a bunch of dudes and they're throwing weights around and they're all sweaty and
Hey, now
um,
it wasn't just a bunch of dudes because I joined that gym. Like
yeah.
this is the weirdest thing, right?
Hmm.
Because I moved to Iowa, Fort Dodge, Iowa, which is just north of Ames.
Yeah.
Uh, I moved there in July of 2011
Hmm.
from Colorado. And it wasn't that July, it was late. I don't even remember exactly when I started coming down there, but I never met you. I would go to CrossFit 3 times a week. I would drive an hour to go to CrossFit West Ames
Hmm.
class. And then, because I always went in the evening because I was working as a teacher.
Okay.
So I would go to like, I don't know, the 7 o'clock class maybe. And then I maybe,
Okay.
and then I would teach yoga after. So
Okay.
I remember that gym. Like it was basically like a tin shed.
It was.
Yeah,
I mean, the walls to do handstand push-ups were just like the
horrible.
siding you see on the bar. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Super uneven. Like it's just it was awesome. I loved it. I loved every part of it. Just the
Did you
way it
go
was just
during the
so
day?
raggedy.
There during the day then?
I would go in the evening too. It must have been probably the earlier classes. I don't remember exactly
Okay.
what hours I went, but I would because I was I'm trying to think. I was still working in Ames when I first started, but a few months later, then I started at Wells Fargo and would commute to Urbandale and come back. But I don't remember what hours I went exactly. It may have been the hour before you. I know the hours I went to, it was usually guys. Now maybe that's just the way it was back then with the location. It was Ames is just different because it's a college town and it was the only gym there. So I mean,
Oh, don't get me wrong. There were for sure more guys doing CrossFit at that time than women.
for sure, for sure. Like the only women I remember, there was a couple in there. I guess I don't remember their names, but then only and then Morgan, the coach.
Mhm.
But I can only remember a couple, three faces. But I'm sure that maybe there was more. I don't have the best memory, of course, but um, yeah. So I just remember going in there doing the workout, and like I said, it was a lot of just like I think it was push ups, pull ups. I think it had overhead squats in it. I think that was in it. But like I just got wrecked, and I remember thinking like this will be easy. Like I'll just go. It was like a minute each station type of thing, like a fight gone bad, minute of push ups, minute of pull ups, and whatever. I was like, okay, this is a good one to get into. And then by the end of it, I was like, what the heck just happened? Like I'm on the ground dead, and I was hooked. I think I signed up right then and there, and joined, and obviously got stronger. My fitness obviously improved. Those next few years, I obviously I moved to Des Moines the next year, joined the gym down there, CrossFit Des Moines for the first time, and just in my journey throughout CrossFit and fitness in general, I've met a lot of great people. Go
That was
ahead.
different. That was different though, right? Because when you switched, now you were like fully involved in adulthood, right? You had a job at Wells. So what were you doing at Wells? Were you, no, I feel like you were in mortgage. Were you in mortgage?
Yeah, I started as a mortgage. I think they called it a processor. They changed the title like a couple times while I was there, which whatever. But it was like a mortgage processor, and then I became an underwriter for the second half of my time there. I was there about 6 years and change.
Yeah. So
Um,
standard, like you had your cubicle, it was like 8 to 5 or
yeah,
1 to 5. Gotcha.
yeah, yeah. In a cubicle, no windows. I mean, it paid well when I first got there. And then, but office, I figured out pretty early on, like office work isn't for me. I have too much ADD to be sitting tight and one space all day and just in front of a computer. Like I got to be physically moving and doing stuff. So, but the mortgage industry is like this. It has its really busy seasons and it has its really really dead seasons. And I mean, you never know when your day's coming where they're gonna like, hey, we're letting you go because we don't have work for you. And that day finally came in 2018, and I should have probably quit years earlier, but just never kind of was able to take that step to do that leap of faith. And that's what I needed. And then I decided to pursue law enforcement, and here I am now. So now a complete career change. I love what I do now. And
Mhm.
um, yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily CrossFit anymore. I kind of evolved and do my own thing. What works
So
for me.
let's back up a little bit. So you
Yeah.
were doing CrossFit. So I feel like that's a really interesting thing. You have this office job that you're like, I'm super ADHD, but I'm still going to do this desk job thing, right? Because it pays
Yeah.
the bill, right? And you're probably
Yeah.
good at it. And then, but in the evening, go and do CrossFit. Did you feel like that helped? Like, what did that do for you on the daily? For you to just even do that movement? Because you had talked about like in college, you kind of got into this space where you weren't doing a whole lot physically and you didn't feel good and anxiety was high and you were kind of depressed and all that kind of stuff. So, did the CrossFit kind of help with being in a space where it didn't really fit for you, the job,
Um,
or no?
I guess I never really thought of that. Like I never kind of combined the two. I've always kind of kept work separate from that. I started when I started working out the first few years, I would work out after work, and then I switched to mornings. Um, and I guess really it wasn't necessarily the workouts themselves, but it was the connections I made there. I met a lot of police officers while I, worked out at these gyms, and realized I'm very similar to these guys. And a lot of them would tell me like, dude, you'd be a good cop.
Mm.
And I was too immature in my 20s to be one. I never really thought of it. I did want to go military actually outside of when I left high school. 9/11 happened when I was in high school, and a lot of guys my age were, doing that, going that route. We were still angry about what happened and wanted to go serve and do that. So I've always had that itch to serve and be active, and military really would have fit for me, I think. But parents talked me out of it. Maybe it was for the best. I think, you know being a religious person, I do think God has a plan for me. So I think it was probably the best thing for me. There was something else bigger I needed to do, and I'm doing it now. But yeah, I mean, I'd say it's just the connections I made was the bigger part that influenced me with my career, because there's a lot of great people in CrossFit. There are. Even though I don't do it much anymore, I will say its biggest. Um, I'd say the biggest pro to CrossFit, even for people that don't like it or look down on it, is the community aspect of it. It really is cool. Like I understand there's bad apples in there. There are. I cringe, and I can't stand those people as well. But there's most people in CrossFit are really great people. And having those partners that you work out with it day in, day out, those connections you do, it makes the workouts that sometimes really, really suck, especially the ones that you're bad at least a little bit more, less, there's less suck to it. They help push you through it. You suffer together, and that part was always really cool to me. I think it's what drew me to it the most, to be honest, was just looking forward to seeing those people in those classes. Um, I had some great coaches. Um, some of the best people, I've learned from. I mean, I would observe them and just, I adapted some of my style when I coached from them, took bits and pieces I liked, even you as well, Um, so yeah, I mean, I guess I would say that part of it was probably what kind of led me down that path of changing careers.
Yeah, I
Um,
didn't realize that you had kind of that experience at CrossFit where you were meeting those people in the, officer type space, right? That service space, and
mhm.
that you kind of felt a draw to that. I didn't realize that. That's where that kind of came from. I mean, and we knew each other when you made that transition, and I didn't realize that.
Yeah, I think obviously you knew a couple of them. You coached a couple of the Urbandale ones. And I knew some, there were some that had left before you got there that were there my first stint there. So obviously my first stint at CrossFit Des Moines was years before you came. And then I went to CrossFit West Des Moines, helped build that gym and coach there, and came back. And, but yeah, I mean, I've met law enforcement officers. I think at every gym I've been at, even West Ames had a few. Well, yeah, the owner now, Heath, is just,
Yeah.
so, um, yeah, it's so meeting those connections and stuff, and kind of, like I needed, like obviously my dad has been the best role model in my life, but other role models in my life have been a lot of those guys, whether they know it or not. Um, you know, I always look up to them, kind of seeing how they carried themselves and how they acted. And then, and they always were encouraging to me, even when I decided to make the leap. I'd ask them questions and they were like, absolutely, you'd be good at this, and I got nothing but, the best to say about those guys. They've really been a great influence in my life, along with a lot of other people too.
For sure.
Um, but
But
yeah.
it's interesting that you it feels like you were really drawn to them, and then you like Wells Fargo says, "Hey, thanks, but we
Mhm.
don't need you anymore because we're not as busy." Nothing you did. And then you were like, I'm gonna give this a shot.
Yeah, I mean, I actually went and worked at Drake University. Took a huge pay cut for a couple of years while I was, it was a good stepping stone job. Got a lot of experience. Had a blast working there.
Oh, well,
I
now
mean,
let's back up though. How old were you when you did that? Because I think this is the thing people need to know this. You weren't like
okay,
22.
no,
No.
I'm 38 now. So when I moved or switched to Drake, that was 20 fall of 18. So I'd have been like 32. I think it was 32. 6 years ago. It's about right.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. That's a scary time to
Go ahead.
make a career. That's a scary time to make a career change. I mean, it is, but I just never second guessed it. Like as soon as I made that decision, like I had never second guessed it. I mean, I was like, this is what I was gonna do. I'm gonna focus on it, everything, day and night. And you saw, I mean, you knew me during that transition, and um, like I changed how I lived outside of work. Obviously, I mean, I wasn't necessarily a terrible person or anything like that, but I, had to mature even more to another level, to make myself appealing because at those days still, pre 2020, it was still pretty tough to get on. Most departments they get 100 applications and they're hiring one or two. So it was pretty tough competition. And so you had to try and find a way to stand out. And, you know, I learned that too. I mean, I applied to a lot of places and, would get fairly decent in the process, but, always seemed to be coming up short for whatever reason. And, I always took a lesson away from when I didn't get the job, like, hey, what I do good, what I didn't do well, and trying to improve. And eventually it worked out. But
So you went to Drake not because you absolutely wanted to work at Drake as a security person, but it was a stepping stone. And then while you were working there, that your objective was to apply to other because you have to get so in Iowa, am I right? You have to get hired on to a department before you can go to ILEA and get like go through the training to become a police officer.
correct. Some states do it the backwards. Here in Iowa, it is most of the time a department will hire you and then they will sponsor you through the academy, whichever academy you go to, ILEA being the most common one. Yeah. So,
And
yep,
so
that's what happened to me. Yeah.
so you were like honing some skills while you were at Drake.
Yeah. I mean, just learning. Drake was basically, I kind of call it like, I guess the analogy would be if you're a baseball fan is the AAA type of thing. Like we're not sworn officers, but we dress like police officers. We carry the radios. We carry ASP batons. We carry OC spray. We just don't carry firearms, which is knowing what I know now in that neighborhood is absolutely crazy. But I didn't know any better then,
Yeah.
But I mean, it was still really fun. I mean, I met a lot of great contacts through Des Moines Police because they worked a lot with Drake off duty, working events. The neighborhood kept us busy. I mean, it's a high crime area. And the campus is beautiful and everything, and the people there were great. I mean, it's just mostly the neighborhood that was our biggest issue, and probably still is there this day. But yeah, it was a great time. Just learning how to practice some communication skills, how to talk to people, like people that of different all different backgrounds, race, religion, creed. I mean, orientations. You know, so that's what really helped me out, and coaching actually helped me with that over the years too. So I felt like I had a good base already for communicate with people, different people. Um, so it felt like the job kind of I felt pretty natural at it, even though I still had a lot to learn, and I did learn a lot while I was there. But yeah, I definitely. I mean, I look back, and those were a great year and a half, 2 years I was there. Just even though the money wasn't coming in like it was at Wells Fargo, and make as much now, but I'll still never like forget that time there and how important that was in my development as a person, career and personal.
Yeah. It was also an interesting transition too, going from that corporate job where you're working all days. And wasn't most of your time at Drake overnights?
The first few months, I was fortunate to switch to everyone calls it different, but I was overnights when I started. I think we did 8-hour shifts,
Mhm.
12s on occasion, but mostly eights. That was tough going in like 11:30 at night to
Uh-huh.
start your day.
Yeah.
Getting up at 7:30. That was probably the hardest part for me, actually. You
Talk about
know,
that. Talk about what made that hard. Because this is really, so I think,
yeah.
so the other reason, like the evolution of you in your work, which is interesting, and also the evolution of you in your fitness, which is interesting. But you've also, inside of those evolutions, you have had to make some major adjustments. And there are just some major learning opportunities that you had about how your body functions, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, as you get older too, I was already in my 30s, so I kind of already had been through some tough times where, like, I love CrossFit and everything, and there's a lot of great parts of it. There's parts of CrossFit sometimes I'm like, disagree with these days compared to the old days. But regardless, I'd had injuries in my I think it was actually around 30. I started having some back issues and stuff. I think it was mostly what I was doing wrong, obviously. Had to learn how to adjust to that, change things, check my ego. That was a big one. But yeah, adjusting to like the nightlife. Um, like, our bodies aren't designed to work overnights. It's just biologically we sleep at night, we work during the day, but we have to have public safety and certain positions, essential workers overnights, and I did it. And so I noticed, like, felt like a zombie a lot of times during the daytime, even. And I noticed it in my workouts weren't as crisp, I wasn't as fresh. Even if I slept a full 8 hours, it wasn't a good 8 hours. I just, so I had to learn, okay, kind of know my limits, adjust my workouts, modify them, even maybe even back off on volume, because if you're not sleeping as much, there's no point in doing as much volume as you did maybe when you worked a normal life, because you're not recovering as well.
Yeah.
Diet changed. I mean, you know, I meal prepped, but sometimes maybe if I didn't get to meal prepping, there's not a lot of food options on nights,
Oh,
usually gas station food.
yeah.
Not the best stuff, but at least it's something. But so yeah, you got to learn to listen to your body. Um, I mean, if checking your ego is huge. That's something I would say as a big takeaway. One of the top lessons I would ever tell any of your clients is, like, you got to listen to your body and understand your limits. Don't worry about comparing yourself to others, because I mean, just compare yourself to you every day. Try and be better yourself. But yeah, I mean, I would simplify my workouts and just do basic, boring stuff, because that's all I could do. Just, I'd call it like a maintenance phase. Like, I'm not really trying to make gains, but I'm trying not to lose.
And
So
that's an interesting thing to think about, because during that time, you had talked about you had a back injury previously, or you were having back issues. During that time, had you been like, nope, I'm going to be here and I'm going to build muscle and I'm going to, like, really, this is going to be about improvement and I'm going to progress and all that, you were pretty much going to set yourself up, because of the lack of recovery, because of the weird nutritional things that you had to do, and the lack of sleep, you were going to set yourself up for injury. I mean, that is just a prime time to get injured. So for you to be really cognizant of the fact that this is a season of your life, and it was only a
yeah,
season, like you said, a couple of months or whatever it was, to just say, I'm going to stay in this maintenance phase where I'm going to simplify everything, I'm going to do what I can do, not going to push it. It's like, I'm just going to try to keep myself where I'm at, because I have something else going on that I have to do to move a different part
yeah,
of my life forward. Right.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, the job actually helped with that too, because it involved a lot of walking.
Mm.
Because we had to do building checks and walk the campus. So I walked more of those 18 months than I did the rest of my life. I mean, so that helped a lot. But I still, yeah, like you said, there'd be days where even I'd say, I'm not doing anything today. Like, I'm not doing a workout today. It's just on the cards. My body's saying no.
Yeah.
Like just going to work and walking will be my workout. You
Yeah.
know, I mean,
Which
it's
goes
not
back
easy
to
to do.
which goes back to you, what you said about don't compare yourself to other people, because I
Yeah.
mean, you have to really, it's really comparing yourself to who you were the day before, right?
Yes, it is.
I feel it today. I can't do it.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you know, in my early days, of fitness and stuff like that, I used to compete in the CrossFit competitions, the early days of CrossFit competitions, mostly down in Des Moines, and obviously did the Open and stuff in those days. And I got really into it. But I caution people, and there's nothing wrong with competing. I don't do it anymore. It's just I'm too old and just I can't afford to get injured in my line of work.
Right.
So I just work out within my own means and just for what I want to do. But if you want to get into that realm, I caution people like um, you just gotta still understand your limits and check your ego. I mean, it's easy to think you see someone else over here doing a certain weight or a certain volume and think I can do that automatically. Like we're not all built the same. Everyone's built different. You also don't know what their experience level is, how many years they've trained, and what they're on. I mean, when you think about, and I'm sure we'll get into this, but like this is one thing about fitness industry I hate is just the influencers. I hate, you know, there's a lot of good ones out there, but there's a lot more bad ones. And I think there's a lot of, I call it just trash out there that just gives people false hope and false, realities of what they could do. They just take this magic drug or do this magic workout regimen or whatever. Like there is no magic, it's the real life is actually a lot more simple than you think and a lot more boring.
Hmm.
Um, and actually that's the thing. When I was doing this maintenance stuff, doing the simpler workouts and stuff like that, even into when I was in the academy, staying with you guys, I actually learned because of the maintenance stuff, I actually got fitter doing basic stuff like push-ups, just pull-ups, air squats or lunges, with minimal weights, but doing them with really good form and running with good form.
And being
I got
consistent.
and being consistent got me in the best shape of my life. In fact, the year of COVID, when I was in the academy, gyms were shut down. A lot of people, unfortunately, were probably, losing their fitness. I was in the best shape of my life. Also, the academy helped because we also had to do their PT, their running. So we ran a lot in the academy and also, but we didn't have nights out because everything was shut down. So we were just stuck out there during the middle of the week. And every night there was nothing to do. So we'd go down to the gym and burn a couple hours working out, so we basically did 2 a days for 3 months.
Yeah.
And
You also
but I didn't
ate
do anything crazy.
correctly, though. Like we did a lot with adjusting your food during those times too, and really paying
Oh
attention.
yes.
Yeah. You want to talk a little bit about that?
So are you talking about Drake specifically? I think that's what I remember.
So once, because it was different, right? The food was different.
Hmm.
Once you got away from the desk and you were out,
Yes,
things had to be different. So
I
just
remember. Yeah, I forgot about that. I remember. Yeah, because you started making my meals. Excuse me. I think I was I at Wells?
no, I don't think it was when you, oh, I feel like it was just when you switched over to Drake, because I think that
Okay.
I could be wrong, but I feel like that transition was really like you were like, holy crap, I just need help me out here. If you can help me out, that'd be great.
Well, I do. Actually, a couple things happened. I remember. I'm trying to think now because sometimes this stuff runs together. But I do remember we had to make like several adjustments one year. I think I was like eating a certain amount, and I was like, I'm hungry still, and I had to eat another meal. And you were just bumping up the meals, bumping up the amount per meal or something, or giving me more meals.
Yeah.
And because my activity level was increasing for sure, like at the job.
And
I
part of
remember telling you,
was we had to add to your existing meals because you didn't have time to add another meal to your life,
right,
right? So
right,
we were adding slowly into each individual meal.
correct,
We didn't want you to have digestive issues, right? Because if you eat too much in one meal, right? But we also needed you to have enough food in you, enough protein, carbs. We weren't really worried
yeah.
about so much, but we needed you to have the energy to be able to do what you needed to do.
Yeah, and I do remember there were times, I think it was mostly summer times, I would feel exhausted, but heat, you're working, it just feels like it takes more out of you. I do remember being like, I just don't have any energy. I don't know why. Like when I'm at work, I just walking was hard, you know. And yeah, I do remember you telling me that. I think even it may have been your suggestion even because I only drank water when I was there. I think just adding like a Gatorade, a sugar drink, I just needed that sugar and electrolytes, and I did notice improvement there even. But yeah, the meals, I remember. I swear, I think I felt so bad. I do remember telling you like 3 or 4 times in one year, like I need to adjust the meals again. Like this is either too much or not enough. Usually, it's probably not enough.
Yeah, dang,
Uh,
dude, you were eating
and
so much
I couldn't believe
food.
it was a ton. I don't even eat near that now. Yeah, I want to say I think we got to a point where I was eating 4 meals a day.
Oh, sure.
I think I was. It was crazy, like 4 big meals. Um, and it was actually I think pretty healthy too. Yeah, um, but I just like I said, it's another part of like I said earlier, listening to your body. I mean, obviously, if something's not right, like if you everyone you should know your baseline. And I mean, if you feel like it's hard to just do basic things, walking or getting up off the couch or whatever. I mean, you know, what has changed, recently? I mean, are you eating enough? I think and we've had these conversations before. Like it happened to me. A lot of people just don't eat enough. I think at least certain nutrients. They might eat enough total calories or too much, but maybe not get enough protein.
Right.
This probably more than I do, but I think most people are short in at least protein or clean carbs.
Sure. Yeah, most people when if asked to do like a food diary, give me 3 to 5 days of food diary. Most people are eating like it's pretty easy to get anywhere from 50 to 80 grams of protein in a day without thinking about it too much. Um, and a lot of people are like, that's a lot. It's like it's not. When I was meal prepping for you, I was looking at 4 meals and I was trying to hit like 50 to 60 grams of protein in every meal.
I think that sounds about right. I remember the numbers were just astronomical.
Yeah, and
I
you
mean,
and your carbs were like 300, 325. And we did that for a while and then you'd be like, "Oh, this is a lot of food." Like your body would just like depending on what was changing and moving, you would tell me because that was important, right? Like if you're looking at working with someone coaching wise on anything, that feedback is so important. And I
it
told you
is.
I remember telling you that multiple times like, "Dude, you just have to tell me because I'll make the adjustment." Because you were so
Yeah.
busy, you didn't care what your macros were. You just knew you were just following what your body was telling you. And I was the one
Hmm.
manipulating the macros and making the food and doing that for you. But you would come to me and be like, it's too much. And I'd be like, all right. And so we'd back down. And
Yeah,
I chose where we back down. And god dang, you got really, really fit.
I did. And I was like, I was always scared to tell you because I'm like, man, she just made this adjustment, it feels like. And then I got to tell her, like, hey, make it again. And it is hard. It's hard to say, like, especially after you've made the adjustment a couple of times, like, hey, we're wrong again. We need to, you know,
You
but
know,
no, it's absolutely true.
yeah. And it's so thinking about that, really, honestly, that's important to like highlight because
Hmm.
even like most people will be like, okay, if they're on macros or whatever. So we'll just talk about macros. Someone who has done the online macro calculator, please God, don't do that. It's not accurate. But like get yourself to like we can get someone to their macros and they're like, I'm just gonna go do it on my own. Things change. Things change all the time. So to be able to, like you did, reconnect with your body and go, whoa, something's not right. Like
Yeah.
I need more, I need less, something's happening. So it's never a static, like for the next 10 years, I'm going to be at these macros. That's just what I'm going to do. That doesn't
No,
work. Body is always changing.
absolutely. I mean, I think like you said, seasonal, like you're always in constant evolving seasons. I mean, even in my line of work, I just switched to day shift and, you know, um, I eat different amounts now than I did on nights. I mean, you know, I'm sleeping a lot better too now, so my
So
workouts have
what's
definitely improved.
so talk about your food intake. What's different than going from nights to days? Is it timing? Is it amount? What is it? Both?
And I might be the worst one to ask. You know this about me because you know all my numbers, or did when I worked for you. I don't know my numbers. I just go off feel. Now, I've been doing this a long time, so I wouldn't recommend this to maybe brand new people. But I mean, I just kind of I make a set amount of meals. So I know like this will probably last me 5 to 7 days, whatever. Um, and then I just eat when I'm hungry. That's all I do now. It's that simple. They're clean meals. It's chicken,
The
veggies,
key,
rice.
the key to that though, there's two keys, right? What you just said is you
Yeah,
didn't start there because it's
mhm,
impossible to start somewhere without any education, like figuring it out ahead of time.
correct. Yeah,
And
correct.
and say that again, the last thing you said about what types of things you're eating.
It's boring. I swear. I mean, it's just chicken breasts, rice, and some veggies. I'm on a green bean phase right now, but sometimes I'll go broccoli. Sometimes I'll go whatever I feel like, but mixed veggies. But yeah, it's simple. And I'll throw like a sauce I get from like Aldi. I don't even know what it's called. Just something to give it a little spice. I like spice, but
Do you
you
mix
know,
up your proteins though too?
do I what now?
Mix up your proteins too?
Like the type of meat? Nah, not lately because chicken's just a lot cheaper. Um, I think there was one time like recently where they were out of chicken. They just like were out when I went there, so I bought beef, but it's cheaper for at least where we're at anyway. So I just get that.
Gotcha.
But I love red meat. I love steak. Don't get me wrong. If I had to choose and no price wasn't the option, I would eat red meat. I just love it. I would eat steak every day if I could. But
So that's one interesting thing, right? In order to keep our gut in a good spot, right? Our gut
yeah,
microbiome needs diversity. So whether or not it's you're diversifying because each meal is different, or you're doing mixed vegetables, or you're changing
hmm
up fruit throughout the week or every other week, or changing up that protein, which is super super important. Um, doesn't have to be every day, doesn't have to be every other meal of every day, but super
hmm
important for nutrient value, but also for gut microbiome. Super important to keep that in.
Interesting. Yeah, then maybe I should put throw in some beef from time to time. I've been on chicken for I want to say well over a year for the most part. I mean, besides my cheat meals, but yeah,
Yeah. Well, in those cheat meals, I mean, you're probably eating different protein for your cheat meal, right?
not really.
Okay.
Pizza.
Nick.
On cheat days, it's pepperoni on the pizza. If I have a cheat meal, I'm still usually getting my protein in. It's like I'll
All
just
right.
treat myself to pizza or something.
So loosen the purse strings and give yourself like steak at least once a week, or just do ground beef, or,
Yeah,
just
I've actually
switch
I've
it up.
actually thought about doing the. I haven't done the burritos in a while, and I need to start doing those again. I thought about it. Yeah, so that might be ground turkey or ground beef.
Nice.
So you know what? I'll probably start incorporating those again because those are dynamite.
Yeah. Yeah. Want to keep you healthy. I know I'm the same way, right? It's like, oh my gosh, like I don't want to spend a ton of money on a bunch of food. Uh,
hmm
but you got to kind of have that variety. I do also want to highlight the fact that we are having this conversation like meal prepping and meal planning is like second nature to us, which is not true for most people either.
Well, and listen, I'll tell everybody out there. I hate. You know me. I hate doing it.
I
I
know.
absolutely hate. It. So that's why I do the meals I do because I can get it done in under an hour, basically. Um, the way I have it set up, I have a rice cooker and a couple pots. I just throw all the meat in, and you know, I get canned veggies usually or something like that, or it's already cooked. And my process, because I hate it. Like I don't mind cooking for like grilling for other people and things like that, but meal prepping for myself, I dread it. I mean, but I do it. It's one thing you got to be disciplined in the gym and outside the gym,
Yeah.
and so I'm in that habit. I do it now. Am I perfect? No. I mean, nobody's perfect, but 9 weeks out of 10, I get those meal preps done. There's occasionally a week where I just, maybe it's work. I'm working a lot, or just whatever reason, I just don't get around to it. I just don't feel like it, and it happens. We're human, but staying consistent with that stuff is huge.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
You
not a
pick a
sexy
day,
answer. People,
you pick a
uh,
day, you pick a couple hours of that day and you get it done.
yeah. I mean, combined, if I go to, I mean, the grocery store I go to is just less than a mile from my place. So the whole process for me, I'm in and out quick. The whole process for me is an hour and a half. I mean, I get about 10 pounds of chicken breast. I try to. And like I said, that should last me almost a week. Um, so yeah, I mean, you know, if there's one thing I can emphasize, nutrition is much more important than people realize, if not more important than what you do in the gym,
Yeah.
believe it or not. It took me years to figure that out. In my 20s, I felt like I could outwork a bad diet, and you can get away with that in your early 20s. But, around 25 plus for me, it started becoming apparent like I gotta eat better. If I really want to perform better, whether it's competitions or just general fitness and or look better or whatever, your goals are, nutrition is key. And I'm talking about the food, not the stuff. I don't care about supplements. I don't do any supplements. I don't, I haven't taken, I used to, but I haven't taken supplements in years because I didn't feel the benefits were worth the cost. So I just get everything in my diet.
And that's interesting too, right? Is you prefaced this bit of your conversation talking about discipline, right? You just do it.
Yep.
And for you
Mm-hmm.
to do that, you are very aware of why you need to meal prep. Like your
Yes.
why is right there. You need to eat, you need to feel better, to do your job better, to perform better inside and outside of the gym, inside and outside of your job, so that you keep all those like moody emotional things at bay because you're eating well, which allows you to do the things that make you feel good, so you're not experiencing that depression anxiety that you experienced back when you were in college, right?
Absolutely. I mean, I notice like I love ice cream. I do.
Me too.
If I have ice cream, I know the next day I'm not going to be 100%.
Yeah.
I'm consciously making that sacrifice. I go, well, tomorrow I'm not going to be sick or anything. I mean, but I know I get a little brain foggy, if I eat too much ice cream or, don't eat well, and I'm fine with that. Usually I do it. I try to do it where I have an off day the next day. So it's not so bad, or not eat it too late before or too soon before bed, I guess, or too late in the day. And that usually, so that sometimes will help too if I have it maybe earlier. But yeah, I mean, I think it's important to have these rewards. For I mean, you can't go through life and just be a robot
Yeah.
and be like only just beat yourself, in the gym and just eat, the cleanest food you can and not enjoy the other fruits of life. I mean, have an ice cream cone or whatever you want once a week. If you want to go out, and have a day where you just splurge on whatever you like, do it.
Mhm.
Do it. It's as long as 5, 6 days out of the week you're sticking to that plan, reward yourself at the end of that week. You'll be fine. You'll still get to where you want to go.
Yeah.
Unless you're competing for like the elite level
Well,
competition and whatever it is, no, I mean, it's not worth it to be like that. Like you'll go insane eventually.
yeah.
And there are people out there that just can't do that, and good on them. That's like the 1%ers. But
Yeah.
person like me, I'm a foodie. I've always been a foodie. I love eating out. Now it is more expensive to eat out than ever. So that's actually been probably the easiest, um, or I should say the biggest reason why I don't eat out much anymore is like there's days where it's like, man, I don't want to spend $20 just for myself, just for one meal. Like that's insane to me. So yeah, I mean, that's why I meal prep. I mean, the benefits health wise and mental wise, but also it's cheaper on the wallet.
Keep around the pocketbook, absolutely. And
Yeah.
that's true, right? You can't, no one's 100%, right? It's progress over perfection.
Yes.
And you have to be flexible. You have to give yourself the opportunity to enjoy life, because this is life, people. You only get one time around,
Oh yeah.
right? So
Yes.
so you better get out there and have the damn cupcake, whatever it is, not
Yeah.
every day,
Yeah.
not every day. And I like how you said that too, because that's really important. That's part of, and I think we've been on for a while. I don't want to keep it too long. So that's part of
Oh, you're
like
fine.
wrapping it up here too, is your whole life has been about evolving and finding those next steps. And you've always had those goals in mind when you've come to them. You know, you were at Wells Fargo, you were doing your thing, and then something touched you, something happened, you met some people, you were like, this is really not where I need to be. And then there was an opportunity, and you saw an opportunity to take that next step towards that next goal, and you did it. And that's really important for all of us to keep in mind is we, like you said, don't compare yourself to other people, because your goals and your journey, your evolution is different than other people's. And so if your goal, like you said, like if your goal is to be on stage and be ripped, you know, there's seasons for that. You're going to be in prep. So yeah, you're not going to have ice cream. But after that, you get to relax a little bit. Those people who like the CrossFit Games athletes, the bodybuilders, those, they have seasons to what they do. Their goals are different based on time of year and where they're going. So it's important to give yourself, without guilt and shame, the opportunity to not be perfect, because no one is.
Oh, absolutely. And just to kind of add to that, about you mentioned those elite competitors, um, you know, I would tell people, especially, probably most of your clientele and stuff. I mean, what you see those people do, they're doing it. It's not really reality. Like you'll never convince me now that like CrossFit athletes aren't using PEDs of some sort. I mean, the stuff they do and how the amount of volume they train and everything, there's just no way. And so I that's my kind of my big knock on things like CrossFit is when they say like, and I can't prove it, but there's a lot of people out there, even other experts in the fitness industry, that say there's no way these people are using it. And that's why I say, like, I hate how they market like we're average people doing extraordinary things. Like you're not. You're obviously using stuff, you know, PEDs or whatever. I don't know much about that stuff, but stuff that the average person isn't taking and maybe isn't good for your body. And I just don't like how they kind of market like, you guys can all be just like this if you just follow our program. I was like, yeah, that's kind of where they lost me.
The other
But
half of the
just come
population,
out and say it.
like for women, most women are like, oh my God, if that's how I'm going to look, if I do your program, I'm not doing it. Because women are like, I don't want to look like that, you know,
No,
and you
it,
can't,
it's
you're not going
extremely
to.
difficult. You have to intentionally try to look like that, meaning you have to eat a crap ton of food and
Do PEDs.
um, and use some sort of performance enhancing drug, absolutely. And but yeah, I mean, like I said, my biggest takeaways or lessons I tell people was, because I'm mostly self-taught and just learned from trial and error, made a lot more errors, but learned from them. Is like, don't be afraid to just keep it simple. Like, if you have a life where it's pretty hectic and not consistent, kind of like I do sometimes, like, you know, just doing whether, and this is for anyone, male, female, any age, push-ups, sit-ups, squats, squat to a chair, modify obviously within your um, abilities, but like that stuff's all free. You can do that anywhere in your own apartment, in a hotel room. I've done workouts in my own living room here when, before work, where I don't have time to go to the gym maybe, and I only got 30 minutes. I'll just bang out some few sets of push-ups and, squats and whatever, sit-ups or jumping jacks. I mean, it's something, and I'll be like, hey, it's a maintenance day, you did something. And it's a mental win too. Really makes you feel better. Get that endorphins, rush and everything. But sometimes simplicity, really, those are the best programs. The more complex a program is, I actually tend to shy away from it now. I mean, you know, sometimes I think some people just throw crap against the wall and sell it like it's, the next hot ticket item. Like I saw it with CrossFit gyms I coached at. I didn't agree with the philosophies. I'm like, I think people should be at least strength train. By strength train, I mean like what I just said, push ups, sit ups. Like you need to be able to move your own body, physical way, before you even touch external weights. And focus on running, walking, running, jogging, swimming, biking, whatever. Do it at high intensity. If you like going long distance, absolutely do it, but also do shorter distances too at much higher intensity, explosive outbursts. Maybe 10-second, high intensity, rest 20 seconds, Tabata, things like that. You'll see huge gains. So I could go on and on. I mean, I can't believe it's already been an hour. I could keep going, but
No, right?
I don't know what your time limit is.
I told you.
Yeah.
And I think
Yeah.
that's a great note to end on is
Hmm.
keep evolving, get out there, keep it simple, whether it's training or cardio or your food. Simplify everything. It doesn't have to be complicated. And the best thing you can do is just start. Start five
Yeah.
minutes. Start with focusing on protein and water. I mean, just start.
Yeah. I mean, take it from me. Like, I mean, a lot of people think I'm very fit, and I know I'm a generally fit guy, but like, there's days where I keep it really simple and modified.
Mhm.
I mean, I check my ego and go, it's just going to be easy and light today, because that's what my body's telling me. Yeah,
Perfect.
absolutely.
Wow.
Um, so
I want to thank you for being my first guest on the podcast. This was fun and amazing. And I will let you know when we publish this. It'll be soon. So thank you for joining us. It was very fun.
absolutely, Laura. It
Uh,
was a pleasure and an honor to do this. I just want to thank you for all, being, you and Joe being great mentors and absolutely great friends to me, since we've known each other. And, you know, just to tell, message to everyone out here that's listening to this. I mean, she knows what she's talking about. I go to her. She's at the top of the list whenever I have a fitness question. I go to her, and, she's never led me astray. I mean, you know,
aw, you're
yeah,
so.
I know.
I
No,
won't even cut that out. The podcast. Well, thank
don't
you.
cut it out. Yeah.
I
No, it's
appreciate it.
genuine from the heart.
Thank you.
Absolutely, Laura. Thank you so